This project right here will take you, believers and non-believers, closer to the truth than you have ever been before. This project is about the Bible and a simple question that changed the way I viewed it. What if? See, growing up, I always thought that certain things in the Bible or explanations given for those things didn't make sense to me, but it was what I grew up with, and it was what I read and studied during hard times. The harder the times, the more I read. The more I read, the more skeptical I became. I developed complex questions that did not have satisfactory answers. See, for me, certain things have to make sense, or at least I have to make sense of it. I would challenge myself and my own questions, coming up with different possibilities. And one of those days I thought, okay, so what if? What if the Bible was just made up? Who would make it up and for what purpose? Is there something no one is thinking of or looking at? Is this something different? After giving all of these questions plenty of thought and driving myself crazy, I went back and read and kept reading and kept running into the same exact problems until I started to focus on the authors instead of the stories they told. Because regardless of who actually wrote the stories, to me, these stories seem to be designed by people who had nothing for people who had nothing. So then I thought, wait, if the authors that wrote the Bible had nothing and wanted to talk to others who also had nothing, then they might have used the same thing I used when I had nothing, my imagination. So then I started to visualize how I would change or create certain things in the Bible according to that. And I found something interesting. But in order to fully grasp what I thought I found, I had to reset and start from scratch. I had to leave all of the bias I grew up with at the door and started to dissect the Bible with a different lens and use my imagination to mold what I thought I found. And everything actually started to fit together like a puzzle. Even the contradictions made sense. I got to the point where I understood exactly what I was reading and could even make predictions based on what I understood. Now, I'm well aware that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that's why I will provide the evidence for everything I tell you and show you in great detail in ways you never saw it and with ideas that never crossed your mind. I'm going to push your imagination further than it's ever been pushed before, and I will use the very Bible itself to do it. Ready? There are many theories and conspiracies surrounding the writings in the Bible. Who wrote the Gospels and when? Are the stories real or fake? Some people are even willing to go as far as saying, yeah, there are stories of a man at the time that could have been named Jesus, but there's no evidence that he performed any miracles, especially when those miracles would break the laws of nature as we know them. Believers can just say, well, God can break whatever he created. Regardless of which side of the fence you're on, one thing is not really up for debate. The authors of the Gospels are writing about the same exact events, right? Yes, some things are different and some things are written in different ways, but the reason for the differences have to do with their different perspectives on some of those events. Those perspectives matter because they could have very well been firsthand accounts. Now, this probably doesn't make sense to almost anyone because we all know that the Gospels were written well after Jesus died and at different times by authors who never even claimed to be eyewitnesses of those events. Authors who admitted to having other sources and who at times copied each other. I know, but none of that matters. In fact, that is going to help my case. You see, the reason it doesn't matter is because The authors were all looking at the same exact event from their own perspective, but at different times. Yes, I know that doesn't make any sense at all. How is it even possible? That's because the authors were not describing an event or story they heard about or that happened in the past or from other sources. They're describing a story that always happens all the time, every year, and they changed certain things to their liking, described different things they saw of the same event, and they used their imaginations to describe it in their own way using the same characters. Don't believe me? The human brain is a pattern seeking machine. The problem is it doesn't always find the same patterns as others. I mean, we can even look at the same clouds in the sky and come up with different descriptions of them, right? But then you can also see my description if I showed it to you. Now, what if my description is better than yours? What if we were already given a description of something we haven't even bothered to look at ourselves? Have you ever been to an art exhibit or an art gallery? When you view art at an art gallery, the artist knows his or her own interpretation and intentions, but lets the audience engage and create their own. Now, what if another artist tells you what that art represents and that explanation is better than the one you were thinking of? Would you even bother looking further? Probably not. This is a big deal because I believe that the Gospels and other stories in the Bible are, in fact, art. Art that has been waiting for a proper interpretation by someone just as creative as the authors who wrote it. You already had the interpretations you were willing to accept. Now, here's mine. As soon as you hear certain words, a picture describing that word pops into your brain. When you hear the name Jesus, your brain instantly takes you to images like this. His appearance is described in the New Testament maybe once, and the earliest known depiction of his description was hundreds of years after he died. But those artists did not view the description of Jesus as art. That was their first mistake. Our biggest mistake was not viewing the authors of the Gospels as artists, period. Let's take a look. The book of Revelation contains John's vision of the Son of Man. Revelation chapter 1. And I turned to see the voice that spake with me. And being turned, I saw 7 golden candlesticks. And in the midst of the 7 candlesticks, one unto like the Son of Man, clothed with the garment down to the foot, and girt about the paps with a golden girdle. His head and his hairs were white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were as flame of fire, and his feet unto like fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace, and his voice as the sound of many waters. And he had in his right hand 7 stars, and out of his mouth went a sharp two-edged sword, and his countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. From this description, artists got this. But why didn't they get this? Now, you might think that's just a coincidence or even a reach by me. People can and will dispute that description of Jesus as being symbolic or whatever. But is it? I thought that many years ago. Matter of fact, this wasn't even close to being the first verses in my interpretations. I jumped back and forth all over the place from story to story. But when I started putting actual dates on everything and put them in order is when it all came together like a puzzle. Let me show you piece by piece, starting from the beginning. If you want to follow along, you will only need a few simple things: a Bible, whether physical or digital, and the mechanism that drives the project, a night sky program or app that you can find on the internet that maps out the sky and lets you interact with it. I'll provide the one that I use on the description. Let's start from the very beginning with the Annunciation. Luke chapter 1, King James Version. And in the 6th month, the angel Gabriel was sent from God unto a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a virgin espoused to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David, and the virgin's name was Mary. And the angel came in unto her and said, Hail, thou art highly favored, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women. And when she saw him, she was troubled at his saying, and cast in her mind what manner of salutation this should be. And the angel said unto her, Fear not, Mary, for thou hast found favor with God. And behold, thou shalt conceive in thy womb, and bring forth a son, and shalt call his name Jesus. He shall be great, and shall be called the Son of the Highest. And the Lord God shall give unto him the throne of his father David. Right away, the 6th month in the Hebrew calendar is Elul. Elul converted to our calendar, the Gregorian, is between August and September moon cycles. So open up your sky map, type Jerusalem as the city you want to view from. Go to August 1st and stop there. Mary will be played by Virgo. Watch Virgo move through the sky, and then watch Gabriel, played by Bodes, come down and meet Mary and tell her that she will soon be pregnant with the Lord. So the story starts off in Elul. Elul in the Gregorian calendars is between August and September. So let's start the calendar at August 1st. Now we choose the characters because that's what the constellations are. The constellations are actually the characters in the story. And Mary, in this case, will be played by Virgo. Watch what Virgo does. During the night, she comes down. And here's Bodes here, which is Gabriel. You can watch Gabriel come down to give Mary the news that she would soon be pregnant with the Lord. Let's rewind back a bit and let's skip the 2 weeks at a time to see what happens. Now watch this. You can see where the Lord is compared to Virgo. Watch what happens when we skip 2 weeks at a time. August 15th. End of August. Mid-September. You can clearly see what's going on and what's about to happen. End of September. And then we get to the date of October 15th. And there it is. Mary is now pregnant with the Lord. After the Annunciation and Mary becoming pregnant, came the wise men from the east. Matt and Luke both say Jesus born from a virgin. Matthew chapter 2. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, Where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen a star in the east and have come to worship him. Most people believe this is a paradox in Matthew. How can wise men in the east follow a star from their east to go west? The reason this doesn't make sense is because you have been looking at it through the perspective of the Magi or the wise men instead of the eyes of the artist. The viewer sees the sun as the star in the east, so the wise men could also be in the east and follow the sun to the west to Jerusalem. When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them till it came and stood over the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. Let's watch as the star in the east leads the wise men to Mary. So after the Annunciation, Mary gives birth. Let's skip ahead. End of October, mid-November, and you can see she gave birth. Here she is. There's young Jesus. And we will skip ahead to the date of December 25th, because why not? Now,
Watch carefully.
There's a problem. Where are the wise men? The problem here is about timing. Watch what happens when you change the year. If you get the right one, you can watch everything come together.
Watch what happens when we change the year. Because sometimes it's all about timing. And I think this is what separates certain perspectives that the authors held and why they tell different stories at different times. Because they were looking at the sky at different times and different years and saw different things. I'll show you right now. December 25th, 2021. Watch what happens when the sun is setting. Remember, the sun is the star in the east, so the wise men should be following the sun. Sun goes down, and there's the wise men. Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter all happen to be following the star in the east, from the east to the west, and you can see it. Also, what did they bring as gifts? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. All three of those happen to be the exact same colors of the sunset.
After the wise men came a time where we don't have or know much about what happened to Jesus in his youth except for a couple sentences. Why? Because he really didn't have one. But let's take a look anyway. Luke chapter 2. Now his parents went to Jerusalem every year at the feast of the Passover. And when he was 12 years old, they went up to Jerusalem after the custom of the feast. And when they had fulfilled the days, as they returned, the child Jesus tarried behind in Jerusalem. Joseph and his mother knew not of it. But they, supposing him to have been in the company, went a day's journey. And when they saw him among their kinfolk and acquaintance, and when they found him not, they turned back again to Jerusalem seeking him. And it came to pass that after 3 days they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the doctors, both hearing them and asking them questions. All that heard him were astonished at his understanding and answers. And when they saw him, they were amazed. And his mother said unto him, Son, why hast thou dealt with us? Behold, thy father and I have sought thee sorrowing. And he said unto them, How is it that ye sought me? Wist ye not that I must be about my father's business? And they understood not the saying which he spake unto them. And he went down with them, and he came to Nazareth, and was subject unto them. But his mother kept all these sayings in her heart, and Jesus increased in wisdom and stature, and in favor with God and man. Mary is there every year at the same time, and after she fulfilled the days and returned, Jesus tarried behind, which means to delay in a place. When you start, say, in the beginning of the year and move forward, you can watch Jesus delay behind. So they looked for him. And eventually, towards the end of the month, you get to a point where Jesus comes up as Mary approaches the horizon, which is when she finds him. Jesus then goes down with her and increases in wisdom and stature. Wisdom because it got brighter by the day, and stature not just because the sun looks physically larger during the sunset, but because it got more powerful each day. The reason I said that there isn't much about his youth is because he didn't have one. It's because the story continues exactly where it left off, with the baptism, January 25th. Mark chapter 1. And John was clothed with camel's hair and with a girdle of skin about his loins. And he did eat locusts and wild honey, and preached, saying, There cometh one mightier than I after me, the latchet of whose shoes I am not worthy to stoop down and unloose. I indeed have baptized you with water, but he shall baptize you with the Holy Ghost. And it came to pass in those days that Jesus came from Nazareth of Galilee, and was baptized of John in Jordan. And straightway coming out of the water, he saw the heavens open, and the Spirit like a dove descending upon him. And there came a voice from heaven, saying, Thou art my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased.
So this is where John baptized Jesus. John the Baptist is played by Aquarius, known as the water bearer. We find Aquarius here. Going from the date of December 25th, watch what happens as you skip forward a few days at a time. You can watch it. Aquarius gets closer and closer to Jesus until about January 25th, where he baptizes him. And then the other side, Jesus rises up with the Holy Spirit.
Let's keep it moving. Immediately after being baptized, Jesus gets tempted.
Matthew chapter 4. Then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was afterward and hungry. And when the tempter came to him, he said, If thou shalt be the Son of God, command these stones be made bread. But he answered and said, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Then the devil taketh him up into the holy city, and setteth him on the pinnacle of the temple, and saith unto him, If thou shalt be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, He shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone. Jesus said unto him, It is written again, Thou shalt not tempt thy Lord thy God. Again the devil taketh him up into an exceeding high mountain, and showeth him all the kingdoms of the world, and the glory of them, and saith unto him, All these things I will give thee, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. Then saith Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Then the devil leaveth him, and behold, angels came and ministered unto him. So the temptation of Jesus happens directly after he was baptized. So we're going to stick to that, and we're just going to follow him along. Here he is going into the wilderness, fasting. At sunrise, this is when he is tempted to turn stone into bread, which the sun kind of does. You know, the sun grows wheat from the ground, turns stone into bread. Here he is at 12 o'clock noon is when the sun reaches the highest point in the sky, which is the pinnacle, the temple. And then Jesus is taken into a mountain, which would probably be a mountain range here. And then he's told to cast himself down, which is what he was going to do anyway. The difference with Luke's version is that he has a higher mountain before the pinnacle, which could just mean that his version started at sunset instead of the sunrise. Luke's version is that there's a high mountain before the pinnacle, which could just mean that his version started at sunset instead of sunrise, like this. He's already fasted, and then here, that's when he's tempted to turn stone into bread. And then comes around mountain, which it would be a mountain on this side too. And then pinnacle, and cast himself down. By the way, the pinnacle of the temple being at noon or at 12, which is the time of day when the sun is at its highest point, could also explain Jesus in the temple at 12. Anyway.